Redditors who have had to work with other people's computers, what is the most disturbing thing you have found? Half an inch of fluffy, sticky white gunk coating every inch of the interior. It was a podiatrist's office. It was next to a sort of booth where they would grind the calluses off of old people's feet. I didn't know that when I opened it up. I just knew it smelled faintly of burnt hair. This one needs more upvotes for how uniquely awful it is. Buddy wanted me convert a hard drive to a external. Needed some copying and formatting. He had tons of pictures of Arctic sea life. It was like every walrus, seal, etc. on Google image search was saved to his drive. Pretty sure he did it to frick with me. I work as an accountant now, but in a former life I did a stint in tech support. I remember getting a report that a printer, a LaserJet 5P, was constantly jamming. I arrived and started checking all the usual spots for paper fragments to get stuck in the rollers. I flipped down the back cover, and chunk of fried chicken fell out. I still have no idea. Read a story on here about a Geek Squad type guy who found a bunch of gory murder scene photos. Turned out the owner was a homicide detective. Call it professional courtesy, but I feel like that's probably something you should give a heads up about. My dad has his own software company and does tech support for it and general computer repairs for anyone who drops by his office. Don't know what's the most disturbing thing he's come across, but I was present when a man dropped off his mother's laptop. Dad booted it up and immediately encountered a common problem. It was password protected. So he asks the son for the password. The son has to call his mom to get it. The mom tells the son who has to relay it to my dad. Suck big dick 2014. I was setting up my grandfather's printer and he warned me there's a lot of P on there, meaning the PC. LOL, I laughed and showed him how to delete his search history. LOL, I had a girl ask to use my computer and I was like heck no, there's so much P on this thing. She goes LOL, I don't care. Mofo, you don't just do that to people. Plans detailing a prospective campus shooting on the same computer as very sweet emails to his grandmother. He killed himself 2 months prior and I was recovering data for his family. I did not tell them. Guy was severely overweight. I found before and after shaving pics of his crotch and anus. I couldn't even look him in the eye when I handed his computer back to him. Well, you'd already peered into his brown eye. Dang. That's unfortunate. Did computer work for 8 years. Conservatively, I serviced around 1,000 machines a year. I never went digging through the computer or anything, but I stumbled upon CP 3 times. We had a contact at the local FBI and there was a quarantine procedure to preserve chain of custody and all that. However, if you really want to gross people out in the office, mention Mr. Santa. This guy had a super slow PC, which was one of the reasons he brought it in. From power on to being able to open the start menu was 45 minutes. The problem is, his desktop background was a full screen image of himself wearing a Santa hat. Only a Santa hat. He was fat and had hundreds of warts everywhere. God dang. Master troll emo. Guy was having problems with his computer, so he brought it into us for a virus removal. Standard stuff. I set it up with a monitor, keyboard, etc and left it to boot up. When I came back it had booted to desktop. The background was a picture of a guy, not the customer, fully nude, spread eagle. I've never switched a monitor off so fast. Sorry dude, this is funny as frick. My grandmother passed away recently, and my 87-year-old grandfather got a new girlfriend, 27 years younger. About 2 months later, I was setting up a printer for his laptop, and in his bookmarks he had a few links to Viagra distributors. So now I know that my grandfather gets laid far more often than I do, and needs medication to get it up, which makes sense I suppose. Old people frick all the time. Found a folder on my mom's computer titled, Saints of My Children, found weird poetry and chat logs of some guy offering to kill my wife and me. My cousin worked for a summer doing IT stuff for her mom's company. She worked on a co-worker's laptop and discovered explicit emails indicating he was sleeping with her mom, who was still married to her dad. Found a load of P while working on a client's computer. Lots of browsers cuts and fragments of videos. Come to find out, he wasn't obsessed with P at all. He was an editor for browsers. He must have a 1,000-yard stare looking at P. Was asked on to double check a bunch of computers for pictures and identifying information before recycling the towers. Found the Win98 machine that hadn't seen the internet in a very long time, and on it was Napster, just like we choose to remember it, along with ICQ, Yahoo Messenger, and CompuServe. A computer fossil. A photo album full of polar bears with Coke bottles photoshopped onto their hands, like very badly done. Like 40 photos. I was just trying to update a friend's drivers and couldn't resist opening the folder called Coke Bears. Probably worked for Coca-Cola. A relative once asked me to help find some files on her very cluttered hard disk. When search failed me, I started browsing through folders when I found it. Pictures of pillows. Every single type of pillow possible, with lots of different colors and decorations. There were literally thousands of pictures, including some with what looked like bloodstains on them. Oddly scary. I placed my hand on the user's mouse and my hand stuck due to lube on the mouse. Computer itself could hardly function due to P pop-ups. Yeah, lube on the mouse. Yeah. My friend's mom. 7 antivirus installed. That is has 6-inch tall of toolbars. I have to note that me and her son both has masters in computer engineering. He always tried to educate her but she would just get mad. He gave up. I had a co-worker that wanted me to come by his house to fix his PC. This was like 15 years ago. He takes me up to his bedroom. Not too unusual. He was having internet connection issues. I was so focused on checking cabling to his modem, router etc. under the desk that it took me a while to also notice next to the desk the camera on a tripod, pointed at the bed. It all clicked when I finally got the interwebs working again, launched his browser, and his homepage was some couples sharing kink website. Thought he was gonna be behind you jerking it, so you got off easy, but apparently he didn't. I lent a friend a use of my laptop for a 3-hour game of D&D. He used a site called Fur Affinity to download lots of Nazi dog pee, drawings, Doberman and Nazi uniforms fricking each other. When I confronted him he said you'd think there'd be more German shepherds. That just sounds like your friend was messing with you. Neighbor asked to have their son's computer looked at because it kept blue screening. I agreed and braced myself for a bunch of pee. The kid was 14. Nothing. A crapload of video games but no pee. What kind of 14-year-old boy who has his own PC has no pee? While I was in high school I also worked for the school district as a student computer tech. My English teacher said her friend's computer was acting up and they wanted some help. After some general tinkering with settings, dumping caches, defragging disks, and uninstalling some bloatware I determined they could use a clean install of the OS. So I started to copy all their files to an external drive and was prepping a new partition to install the OS on. Well, you know those neat previews of the files you're transferring? I started seeing nothing but weird 80s clown pee. Yeah, did I mention I was doing this at my school too? Ended up just locking the computer in a closet for the remainder of the file transfers, configured the computer with all their files, and pretended I didn't see a thing when I gave it back. Dang jugglers. I grew up in a smaller town. I helped start a computer repair place in my teens. A girl from school told her dad to bring his computer into our shop when it needed to be repaired. Upon doing tests and cleaning things up, I found child pee. But it wasn't random child pee. It was this guy's daughters. I could clearly recognize them. The FBI was in the same building as us, so I went upstairs at age 16 and told them what was going on. They arrested the guy the same day. Turns out he'd been abusing them since they were toddlers. I never said anything to the girl, but I knew she knew I put her dad in jail. She never said anything to me. I have no clue if she is relieved or hated me. I used to work at the Apple store and one of my co-workers was running a diagnostic on an iMac and found 100s of gigs worth of child pee. The store contacted the police and a sting operation was set up. He was arrested at the store and later convicted. Co-worker needed to take some time off though, as he had 2 little kids and was pretty traumatized by what he saw. Your poor co-worker. He had a folder on his computer entitled Barely Regal, devoted to racy photos of Sarah Ferguson, former Duchess of York. This isn't disturbing. This is hilarious. Was helping my mom with something on her phone once. Did the thing to open all the apps running in the background so I could close them. Saw a naked picture of her that she probably sent to her boyfriend. I'm ruined. He had a folder of his obese girlfriend's nudes and steamy folders with about 50 different objects inserted in various holes. She was fond of hairbrushes, and not the handle end. Toolbars on Internet Explorer. By the way, fellow user, have you heard about how cool Reddit admin Uspez is? He is a true freedom fighter and has the dankest memes, unlike our competitors at Funkajunk and 9gag. Of course he's nowhere near as cool as the AskReddit mods, but still a great guy nonetheless. Jesus Christ, I was trying to eat here. We had a computer teacher that got arrested and thrown in jail for kiddie pee. Ugly stuff. Since I knew things about computers, I was put in charge of the school's networking and stuff, even though I had no real idea what I was doing. Thankfully, when I used his work computer, none of that crap was on it. What might have been worse? Dozens of letters written to students and parents, apologizing for inappropriate and or unwanted touching of students. Totally playing coy. Devious crap. I hate to think of what he got away with. I was a manager at computer repair for a retailer a couple years ago. We had a client's computer in the back running various malware and virus scans. I was doing morning paperwork in the back near the computer. This PC had its screensaver on displaying random photos from the My Pictures folder. Various family members, children's birthday parties, the usual stuff. Then from then of my eye, I swear to God, I saw a picture of a woman from the shoulders up with her throat cut. As soon as I realized what I was making out, I directed my full attention and it was back to photos of a car show. As the day went on, I thought nothing of it and proceeded to continue my work until I was bringing another customer's PC to the back to work on, and again from my peripheral I could have sworn I saw a bloody body inbound in a trunk of a car. At that moment I began to freak out. I grabbed one of my employees, explained to him the situation. We then sat for 10 minutes and watched this screensaver. It is against company policy to search through the client's personal files without absolute just cause. We then proceeded to see a photo, 2 bodies in a shallow grave out in the woods and another photo of a severed hand down in kitchen drawer. I then went and got the general manager and informed him of the situation and had him view this screensaver. We then felt that I would be in everyone's best interest to contact law enforcement. In about 15 minutes later, owner of the computer and another gentleman show up. I proceed to tell him that his computer is not ready and it will be a while. He then informs me that he was called there because someone reported there was some photographs of a grisly murder that we had found. I showed him his computer and then his partner then begins to laugh at him. Apparently he went against police policy and took some of his work home with him and had never noticed his work photos were being used as a screensaver. TLDR, a detective brings me his computer unknowingly filled with gory homicide pictures that get mixed in with his screensaver. I soil myself thinking I am dealing with a murder. Call the cops and the detective returns to investigate his own computer. Guy brings his computer in. Cockroach scurried out of it and he squashes the bug. Later, we open up the laptop. It was full. How many cockroaches are in a house that the computer is infested? Used to remove viruses, mainly ransomware. This one nice old lady's computer was full of choke-pee, like tons of it. She had folders on the desktop with what I could only distinguish as different kinds of choke-pee, because apparently there's different kinds of choke-pee. I always wanted to go back to her and find out how her husband died. Every fetish has sub-fetishes. According to my grandfather's search history, he likes fat old B. Truth be told, I was just glad his searches were age appropriate. I had an odd one where the user had passed away and the family wanted me to unlock his laptop for them. Just take off the Windows password. No problem. What was interesting was this guy's history. He was about 65 if I recall correctly and a chronic masturbator. Literally every day around midnight he would visit P for about 30 minutes. And this showed up in his history for months and months. That is, until his passing away. That night he had stayed up viewing P until 4 AM. So a solid 4 hours of jerking it to some old school Thai bride stuff. I don't know whether he knew he was going to die, suicide, or the masturbating so relentlessly did actually kill him. as a couple hours later he was found deceased. Either way, I removed his internet history and never told them. Geez, only once a day and the guy gets branded a chronic masturbator. I must be some sort of deviant then. Was trying to fix my friend's mom PCBC. She had downloaded some program loaded with spyware. My friend is not very tech savvy, so he just sat outside in the living room while I worked on it in her room. Yes, as you can guess, I found nudes in the download folder. It was full of his mom naked. But what worse was that there were photos of him giving her oral and vice versa. I dipped the frick out of their house and their lives. Okay everyone, he not a contortionist, but it's not hard for her to do a pop shot while he was down under. Co-worker asked me to look at her husband's computer because it wouldn't boot sometimes. I took it home and plugged in a spare HDD and started transferring photos etc. Found a folder full of bestiality P, especially Pig v Woman. Skipped it and finished transferring everything else. Eventually found out the problem was a pinch tight cable, so I replaced it and left the spare HDD in as a free backup drive. Ran a virus scan and deleted the P folder. When I gave the PC back, my co-worker mentioned her husband was worried that a virus may have downloaded something to break it. I didn't know how much she actually knew or if it was actually her files, etc. I simply told her that the software they used for downloading music, it was Kazaa, I forgot, could easily be the reason why they got the viruses I removed, and they should be wary of any file that wasn't on .mp3. Never spoke of it again, but they paid me $100 more than what I asked. Not bad for a kid in high school. Physically, CM. Buckets of it. Wear gloves when performing maintenance on anyone else's PC. Fellas, your sense of dignity and hygiene is worth at least as much as a cheap box of nitrile gloves. Digitally, also child pornography, usually hidden in the most obvious places, and with some of the most shockingly blatant file names you can possibly think of. The latter is almost always accompanied by the former, but not necessarily the other way round. A long time ago, I was asked to examine a computer of a person who committed suicide the previous day. This is not something I would ordinarily do, but I could not turn down a crying lady on my doorstep. She was just looking for answers. All they knew was there was some drama with his computer. I was sat down in a room with distraught crying people all round. An expectation I could find an answer. What I found was the hard disk missing. It was clear the family had not seen the news. The night before, police had just busted a pedophile ring and seized hard disks from hundreds of people. I was chilled. I just said there was no hard disk, and left. 2 thoroughly dried lizards and what appeared to be some kind of nest that didn't belong to a lizard. I realize though that I may be interpreting your question wrong. Older gent with a really pleasant wife brought his XP machine in for a virus removal and I accidentally found his IE cookies. It was hundreds of entries to various websites for gay black meetups and domination chats. On the wife's profile it was only entries for needlepoint patterns. Worked on a guy's computer, had to move files to the new system. There was an unfathomable amount of mannequin P pictures and various pictures of multi-ethnic blow-up dolls. I have absolutely no idea of why there were so many pictures of mannequins and blow-up dolls. I knew his business was in buying and shipping stuff online, but I didn't know there was a significant market for adult mannequins. So many stories about P. Anyways, here's a different one for ya. Had a guy bring in his laptop complaining it was slow. Took it to the back and turned it on. At least 15 roaches come crawling out of that thing. And that's not counting the dead ones inside. That thing was disgusting. My mom, when I talked to her, played a lot of Clash of Kings. So much that she dedicated almost all her time to it. Blah blah. She began ruining her life. Never cleaning her messes, eating spaghetti with her hands, etc. So one day the game got uninstalled and told me to look at it. Turns out, she was cheating on my dad and offering physical favors for support on Clash of Kings. Yeah, I don't talk to her anymore. I will never fully understand the human brain and how we can devolve into debasing ourselves over virtual currency in a casually played game. Not my computer, but a story a forensic lecturer told me. He talked about how, as part of his course, they would buy old, used computers off eBay and basically use it to recover data that may have been attempted to be deleted or whatever. One time, he said they found missile launch codes on one of them. Related, on the other side of the story, about 5 years ago my MacBook broke and I took it to an Apple repair shop to get fixed. I had steamy pictures in iPhoto from a trip with my boyfriend and hadn't thought anything of it since the computer problem wasn't related to my photos. The tech Doug, a mid-30s chubby white guy, was assigned to my MacBook and after a week or so called me to pick it up. He had my laptop hooked up to a larger monitor to show me what he fixed. One of the things he had done was update my software, including iPhoto. He's going through the new features and suddenly nonchalantly opens the folder from my trip with my boyfriend. He scrolls through the thumbnails until he reaches the graphic naked pics. He opens them up on the large screen and slowly starts clicking through them, talking about new features the whole time. Finally he stops on the last one. My legs spread open on the giant monitor and my bag blown up to the size of his head, and turns to me continuing to talk about software with this image behind his head. For 5 minutes. I was so embarrassed and in shock that I didn't do or say anything. I did call the manager to report the incident later, and he got mad and told me Doug wouldn't do that. Really hope this creeptid didn't make a copy of my pics. Wishful thinking, I'm sure. That's actually really horrible and I'm so sorry you had to endure that. He should have, and his boss should have been fired. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.